It's the Ugly American Werewolf in London rock podcast with your hosts, the Wolf and Action Jackson, who are keeping rock alive by talking classic rock, hard rock, progressive rock, heavy metal, 80s music, early MTV, UK vs. US chart success, and much more. This is the home of classic album and live concert reviews and your place for interviews with artists and legends. You're rocking with the Wolf.
Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to episode number 193 of the Ugly American Werewolf in London rock podcast. Brought to you by me, your host, Mac B. the Wolf, and I will be joined as always by my partner in crime from the East Coast of the United States of America, Mr. Gary Action Jackson. Thanks to everyone who tuned in the last week, as we had a couple of nice new episodes drop. We went back to 1989 with Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood to talk about how that blew them up all over the world, including the US, where it sold 6 million. And we also dropped our most recent first concert memories, this one with Jerry from Something for Nothing Rush Fancast, one of our Pantheon brothers, talking about the first time he saw Rush on the Power Windows tour in New Jersey. And this week, as we like to roll through the hot months of the summer, we're going to bring you a review of one of our favorites by one of our favorite bands. Yes, they're a UK act. Haven't you learned by now that all of our favorite bands are from the UK? But it's one that we really didn't catch on till a little bit later in life. And now, well, they're one of our favorites. And if you are listening and have been for the last year, you'll know that we got to hang out with some of the members of this band in a bar in Antwerp after a show. And that's the legendary, the one and only Iron Maiden. We're talking about their 1984 release Powerslave as it turns 40. At this point, the band finally had a solid lineup. Every other album, there was a change from one to the next, but this is their second album in a row with the steady band. The band that would be known as the classic lineup, with Bruce Dickinson on vocals, Adrian Smith and Dave Murray on guitars, Nickel McBrain on the drums, and of course, Steve Harris on the bass. And after a long, hard tour on the Peace of Mind album, the Maidens were whisked off to go and write the next one. And I found them at the Isle of Man, I found them at the Bahamas, found them in New York City, found them down in Miami, all trying to get the album together and get ready for the next Iron Maiden tour, the World Slavery Tour, which would be 11 months long in 28 different countries, including Behind the Iron Curtain. And it was on the power of this album that allowed them to do that. Before we get to Powerslave, we got a little bit of business to take care of. We always like to mention we are proud members of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a family of over 100 different podcasts. You can check out more at pantheonpodcast.com or follow at pantheonpods on socials. And I hope that at this point, all of you have visited our sponsor, rarevinyl.com, because if you haven't, well, you're not doing your record collection any favors, that's for sure. You're not doing your wallet any favors either, because they have over 250,000 items in stock from all around the world. And they got a lot of first edition stuff, mint condition stuff, picture discs, tour programs, posters, tickets, all sorts of souvenirs from all over the world. And if you use the code UGLY, you can save 10% not only on one item, but on everything in that order. And I know they have a lot of incredible Iron Maiden stuff there. Being headquartered in the UK, you know they trade in a ton of that Iron Maiden stuff. Killer stuff. Picture disc, stuff that you would want. So do yourself a favor, go to rarevinyl.com, use the code UGLY, save 10% on your whole order. Your record collection is going to thank you. Now back to Powerslave. They came out swinging strong with 2 Minutes to Midnight and then Aces High as their first two singles. But then they finished the album up with two epics in Powerslave, which is over 7 minutes long, and Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is about 14 minutes long. Fantastic stuff by the band, really starting to come together, and it set it up for huge success on that tour, and then what would become the live album and live video of that tour, Live After Death. So let's jump in. We're talking about Powerslave as it hits 40, right here on The Wolf. I don't know. I mean, as good a place to any to start is this cover. This is one of the best covers on any album ever.
All right.
I mean, I don't know if I like it better than Somewhere in Time because it has all those like little secret Easter eggs and messages everywhere that true Iron Maiden fans love.
Mm-hmm.
but as just a piece of artwork with the pyramid and the Anubis and all this. I mean, this is a phenomenal piece of artwork by Derek Riggs on the cover of Powerslave and even the back cover.
Yes. And it's cool because they did such a great job of incorporating this into the whole brand.
Yeah.
They were talking about, I was looking at something and they were talking about like they could put Eddie on the cover of Kerrang magazine and have it sell a zillion copies. The band didn't have to do anything. They could take a back seat. And yeah, to see this, even just standing still, like I remember when it came out, I mean, what was this, 84? So what grade were we in then? Somebody had a poster of it or a t-shirt or something. I didn't know anything about Iron Maiden, nothing about the band, but I just remember looking at it saying, that's cool as shit.
I know. Yeah. And being like a little kid from the suburbs, I didn't really get into the whole heavy metal thing until I was older and could understand it. But when I would see the guys like at basketball camp wearing like Motley Crue t-shirts, like, oh, these kids are scummy. And some of the people in their t-shirts, you know, like, I don't want to know anything about this. But then when I start to see Iron Maiden's artwork, I mean, yes, some of it was when is it 84? We're like 11 that summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of that stuff could be a little scary to you. You're not quite old enough to the point like, oh, yeah, dude, that's cool. I like scaring people and having people pissed off. Ugh. But some of it was really cool. And this one just caught me as wow, you know, because I love the whole Egyptian thing. Mm-hmm. I love studying about their gods and the pyramids and all that kind of stuff. I just thought it was so super cool. And then, okay, look, somebody has taken this and incorporated it into a rock band. Might be a rock band that I don't really know anything about, but that said, it's still cool as hell.
And even though the albums are all the same size, 12 inches, it's still, this looks massive. Like it looks like a massive thing. You know, you've got the little people walking up the stairway and you've got things carved into it with Eddie being at the center and then like the lightning coming off the pyramid itself. It just looks, you can spend a lot of time looking at it. And I know there are some Easter eggs in there that Riggs put in, who apparently is just a maniac. He's just this goofy dude who like loves to draw these things. And that was the cool thing too, is that at this point in time, all the album covers were, they had a theme running through them and they were all the same, something to look forward to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Derek Riggs, look, he's incredibly talented. He'd been working with them since the first album. He did a lot of their singles, including some of the singles we'll talk about on this album. But if you just go in and do Easter eggs, right? Mm-hmm. You'll find all sorts of amazing stuff, including like Indiana Jones was here, 1941, you know, and just all these neat little things that to the naked eye or to the uninformed observer that are there, you know, and what? No Guinness? That's great graffiti. I love that, you know. What a load of crap. That's a Riggs joke, you know. It says no FUC-ing at one point going up the stairs. It's hidden in some of the hieroglyphs going up. I'm like, you know what? I know that there's something on here. I can't make it all out right now. So I'm just going to have to use the internet. Mickey Mouse is in there somewhere. You know, it's just, It's very creative. The images are great. And then they took those images on tour with them, basically, for the World Slavery Tour, which was 11 months and 28 countries or something like that. It was like a couple of 100 shows with all those little bits and pieces, with the mummy coming out of the sarcophagus behind them and shooting the fire or explosions out of his eyes. This was huge for metal. And so I started to kind of think, because it did lead to Live After Death, and Live After Death brought a lot of people in who maybe weren't necessarily Iron Maiden fans or even metal fans. So I was trying to wonder, is this their most seminal album? Now, Number of the Beast is much bigger, right? It sold like 20 million copies or something like that worldwide. And Peace of Mind is also huge for them. This is their fifth album, their third with Bruce Dickinson at the helm. Correct me if I'm wrong, is it their second with the classic lineup?
No, second.
It is their second with the classic lineup. Nico on the drums, obviously Steve Harris on the bass, with Adrian and Dave Murray on the lead guitars. And you can start to hear them. You can pick them out when they trade on these things. It's usually Dave first, but you can always pick out who is who from their tone. And yes, of course, the legendary Bruce Dickinson on lead vocals. And though they're all, for the most part, songwriters, at least all the guitar players and Bruce, Dave doesn't write a song on this album, which is rare, at least at the time. It's happened, I guess, once before. He usually gets one right, maybe two. This time he didn't get any. I guess that's how strong the material was. That, and Harry's probably like, I've got these songs, we're obviously doing mine.
Right. Now, the other thing that I didn't realize either is that, I mean, I knew these guys were out of their mind, but I didn't realize how intense this was. So they got off of the World Peace Tour. That was 139 shows.
Yeah.
They took a whopping 3 weeks off
Right.
and then went to the hotel in Jersey, I think, to start writing this material.
And rehearsing,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So, you're talking about Dave not getting a songwriting credit. I mean, with 3 weeks, who knows if he didn't I don't have anything, guys. I just we were just on tour
I
10
just got
minutes
some
ago.
sleep, I was just talking to the missus and making sure the bills are all straight, and then, okay, time to go again.
Then I'm out again. Plus, it sounds like the hotel was just the absolute worst because it's in the wintertime. It's off season. There's nobody there. It's cold and rainy out. Yeah, I understand they had a full bar and a pool table and a darts and everything, but after a while, you start to go a little stir crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So where did they go? They go to Compass Point in the Bahamas.
Well, that was the payoff. That was that. But even that though didn't sound like it was all that cool because you think, oh, the Bahamas are beautiful, but after a while, it's not that big of a place. And if you don't really have anything to do, like Bruce was saying, he had 2 or 3 weeks of them recording the music. You're kind of like, what else is there to do here?
Right. Before he can even lay the vocals down,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it took them behind the Iron Curtain, right? I mean, they played in Poland. In August of '84. They played in Hungary, and there's great things on 12 Wasted Years. You can see Dave Lights, their lighting guy. They brought all their food with them behind the Iron Curtain, right? They brought everything because they didn't know that they're going to be able to get catering and stuff like that. So they brought Coca-Cola, and he had some Coca-Cola, and he would show it to some Polish kids, and then he would open it for them, and then they get all upset because, oh no, you ruined it now. So he's like, okay, well here's a couple more you can take back to their house, which is like finding gold in in communist Poland, back in the day. So, it just shows you how powerful rock music can be in society and in changing the course of the world, So, but I mean, they're all over. I mean, once they finished with Compass Point, the album went to Electric Ladyland to be mixed. And then the band reconvened in Fort Lauderdale to rehearse for the tour, which would be kind of never ending. And at one point, I think they all lost their minds. But I mean, I think it really happened to Bruce in a major way. It's like, I want a curry. You will fly me in a curry from England. I don't want this American crap curry. Maybe they would ketchup on it, something. No, fix this. But all their hard work paid off. I mean, the album went all the way to number 2 in the UK and 21 Billboard. That's pretty good for them in the US at the time, but you're talking top 5 and top 10, top 20 all around the world, and talking gold and platinum albums in Canada, Germany, Japan, Spain. It even went platinum in America, 1 million sold, and eventually has sold over 8 million units over the course of time.
So
which is impressive.
To your point before, is this the greatest album they ever put out? Probably. I mean, you could argue that it's not, but as far as breaking them in the US, yeah, this started what they call the Maiden Mania here in the US.
Yeah, more so than Number of the Beast, which had great songs, more so than Peace of Mind, which we've reviewed on the show. We've gone track by track. But this to me, I mean, from the cover, from the strength of some of the songs, from the fact that this was the album they were touring on when they did Live After Death, which was such a huge, not just album, but to see the video. And of course, it was VHS for a long time. But that's how a lot of people got to see Iron Maiden, because they didn't get to see them on MTV very much, at all. And then if they didn't come to your town, or you couldn't get tickets, or you're too young, or whatever it was, this is the way you could see Iron Maiden. And of course, that video went platinum for them. At least in the UK it did. I think it went triple platinum or something like that. So, this was the one that really kind of pushed them over, yes, they are exactly who you think they are. There's this incredible heavy metal band that write thoughtful songs with lyrics that were, not only well thought out, but kind of have a classical education approach to them between Harris and Dickinson doing this writing. And then, of course, Martin Birch, who gets a new nickname on every album. This time it was Pool Bully. I guess that was part of being in the Bahamas, and maybe he told people who was in and who was out and who should be fighting and not. But that's just some of the fun they used to have. But I mean, a lot of these people, look, Derek Riggs on the sleeve design. He wouldn't do them all, but he worked with them for a long time and eventually came back. Rod Smallwood, management, still their manager all these years later. Andy Taylor, management of the record company. Yeah, absolutely. And then Ross Halfin. They've done a lot of re-releases, like with extra songs and stuff like that over the years, and remastered and stuff like that. Halfin did the pictures for that. But I mean, even for the longest time, you couldn't get all of Live After Death on CD because it was a double album, but it was a single CD. And they left off of there Wrathchild, 22 Acacia Avenue, Children of the Damned, Die With Your Boots On, and Phantom of the Opera. Plus, I think something like Running Free or one of those was clipped a little bit so it would fit on the album. But so eventually they did the proper re-release to put it all out there on CD, which is awesome because we knew Live After Death so well. It's like, yeah, but there's still like a side and a half that you didn't even hear yet because we were CD people, not album people. So this is, I mean, look, I feel like this is the band coalescing in a real way. It takes a little while for everybody to be on board, and this is only their second album of the classic lineup, which did, 4 albums, I guess.
Originally.
So they did 4 plus the live album.
Right.
Plus Made in England was a video that eventually became a CD, but was another big video for them. This is the heyday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you figure before this, every single album they ever did, there was a lineup change. Somebody new came into the band. And you think, it's not that big of a deal as long as you got the core guys. But I think it kind of is. I think that it was probably a big deal to get back together with all of the same people. You're on this roll, and then you just continue it into the next record.
Yeah, you come in the second record, okay, well, we got a new guitar player now. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, as long as you got the other one to bounce up, going to the third record. Well, we got a new lead singer. Well, that's always a big deal. That changes everything. Come to the fourth, we've got a new drummer. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't change everything, but it changes some things about what you could do. So now you've had a while to do an album, to tour, to get to know each other a little bit.
Mm.
This is Uncle Steve from Uncle Steve's Iron Maiden Zone, and you are listening to The Wolf and Action Jackson on the Ugly American Werewolf in London podcast right now.
And it starts with a Steve Harris penned Aces High.
Which I never heard this record by itself. Like it was by the time I get into this, it was already released with Live After Death. I love this track. But to me, there's something about that Churchill intro on Live After Death that just makes it even more powerful.
We will never surrender.
We will fight on the sea. You'll never surrender. Yeah, and then it goes into that. Like you're already amped up before the song even starts.
And they're blowing up pyro and stuff like that. And maybe a plane goes by or something like that. The single, it was also done by Derek Riggs, and it's Eddie in the cockpit of what was the Supermarine Spitfire, which was the principal aircraft that participated in the Battle of Britain in 1940.
Mm-hmm.
First military engagement to fought entirely with aircraft because the Nazis are like, well, we can't just take boats over there and take over England, but we've got this Luftwaffe that can bomb the snot out of people. Let's just take that. And so England's like, nope, we will defend our island, whatever the cost may be. And that's what they did. And they've played this a lot, but you're right. I mean, Live After Death was the one that, that really sent it to the stars. I mean, now, of course, Iron Maiden is great, as so many of these British bands are. We just did an Oasis one, and Iron Maiden is great at the B-side thing. On the 7-inch, it was backed with King of Twilight, which was a Nectar cover. I didn't know the band Nectar.
Mm-hmm.
Nektar. And then on the 12-inch, it had Nectar's Queen of Twilight and Number of the Beast live in Dortmund, December 18th, 1983. And then for the Japanese and Brazilian maxi single, you got those two. Plus, you've got Rainbow's Gold, which was a song by a band called Beckett. Never heard of Beckett. Apparently, that was written by Terry Slessor and Kenny Mountain. And then they had Cross-Eyed Mary, which was a Jethro Tull cover. So just on that song alone, that's 4 more songs you could get if you get all the other singles. But it did well for them. They made a cool video of it, incorporating some old, flying footage and all that kind of thing. And it went to number 20 on the UK singles charts. Now, eventually, in 1990, they released like a maxi single that had 2 Minutes to Midnight and Aces High on it. And that got as high as number 11. But this is good for them to get into the top 20, get on top of the pops, or whatever they may do over there. It didn't chart here in America, which is not a surprise at all. But it's an amazing way to start off the album.
Yeah, and you really kind of get the feeling of the franticness of what was going on then. That, okay, here they come. You're talking about the Luftwaffe. Mm-hmm. It's time. I mean, you got to get into this plane and up in the air quick or you're dead. And then once you're in the air, you've got this. I mean, they didn't have, what do you have? Your eyeballs. That's it. Like you're watching these guys are coming in from behind you. You got to get out of the way and then try and kill them. I can't even imagine the insanity of the dogfights. Well, and they kind of capture that franticness of,
Yes.
Oh, my God.
That's what they do on this. You really feel like you are flying for your life. Run it, scrambling, flying, rolling, turning, diving, going it again. And it's so much fun live. And for the people who don't want to hear this song, I've heard it too much. Well, I mean, okay, I guess, you want to hear something off Dance of the Dead. Would you rather hear that? Or the Dance of Death? Would you rather hear that before hearing this? I don't know about that. And yes, they capture it. And then when they go into the solos, they are frantic solos. They trade back and forth, and it's not like, let's build this up. It's like, no, you got to come out. It's awesome. It's a great song. This is kind of part of Steve Harris's understanding of how it was growing up, post-war Britain. Mm-hmm. There's rubble. Why is there rubble everywhere? Well, son, let me show you something. Let me give you a book to read. They read in this band.
Yeah, and again, we were part of World War II. But it never directly like this. Like it never directly impacted the United States like it did there. We didn't have to put up with the aftermath of it in a negative way. All we got were the positives.
Yeah, well, I mean, we lost our boys and people grew up without dads and husbands, but correct. Nobody's home was wrecked and demolished, right?
Yeah, the economy wasn't in the toilet because of this. Yes, there were losses and people did have to go on with that. But as far as like the impact of it, trying to rebuild the country, we didn't have to. It was far away for that. And the idea that people were coming right now to kill every single one of us, I don't know how you get over that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how is that? You've embraced that in your brain, and then all of a sudden you have to okay, well, the threat's gone now. Well, is it? It wasn't gone in 1919 when we thought it was all over and all gone,
I mean, even this battle, I mean, I have it from July 10th to October 31st. Every day, you didn't know were a lot of them coming, some of them coming, like what was going on here?
What are they going to bomb today? They're going to bomb my school because it's next to a factory. They're going to bomb my church. What's going to happen here? They're going to bomb Parliament. Yeah. And you never know till it's almost too late. It's not like, okay, in 20 minutes, the Germans are going to fly over.
Right.
No, the siren goes off. It's like, get down now because it's happening now. Even with a tornado, you have a little more warning. All right. So that's an incredible way to start off an incredible album. Then right into 2 Minutes to Midnight.
Yeah.
Bruce Dickinson, Adrian Smith, Wright. Again, this is another phenomenal, just a total classic Iron Maiden song. Was actually the first single. It was released 6th of August, 1984, before the album comes out September 3rd. But Aces High, that didn't come out till the 22nd of October, so that it came out after the album came out. So this is your preview to the album. What do you think about this as a lead single?
As far as the riffs that they ever came up with, this has got to be in the top, probably 2 or 3. Just that the riff is cool, and then you have the drum, I guess, fill, and then it goes back into the riff again. This is awesome. It just rocks. Don't stay, don't you pray for my soul anymore.
It really does. And this is a note here. This is the first single to exceed 5 minutes, and it remained their longest until the release of Infinite Dreams in 1989. Just a little tidbit for you there. Again, a Derek Riggs album cover with kind of a mushroom cloud blowing up in the background, and him sitting, Eddie, as kind of a wounded soldier with a machine gun in his hand and kind of a broken down building with a bunch of flags going around like it was the United Nations there. Also back with Rainbow's Gold, but it had Mission from Harry, ARRY, as one of them, as one of the B-sides, and it's fantastic. It's when it happened in Allentown, Pennsylvania during the World Peace Tour. Steve's bass gear had broken down, so he asked the roadie to tell McBrain to extend his solo. But the roadie didn't do it right, and he kind of just distracted McBrain, which screwed up his solo, which had him just scream at the roadie afterwards. But then Steve came to scream at McBrain and probably the roadie too. And so Bruce thought it was hilarious. So he took a little tape recorder and recorded the whole thing. And he's cussing at him. He's saying all sorts of hilarious stuff. I mean, it's hilarious as long as he's not saying it to you, basically. Because you could tell Harry's in charge, right?
He don't think to fucking tell Bill. He wants to get the message to you, not the fucking Bill. So he don't think of that. He just tries to get the message to you, right? So he don't fucking deserve to get a bollocking for that. I mean, all right, he got one, I know. I'm not saying that, but I just don't, Paul's a nice guy. He's not like he's an arsehole. No, I know. Well, I know, but he was out of order because he didn't. He wasn't out of order. He wasn't out of order. He was wrong. He was, because he fucked me up by trying to tell me. If he'd have come up to the riser, look, if he'd have come up to the riser there, I could have fucking heard him.
It's 6 minutes of them going around and around and around and around. It's the same thing. He's pissed. Well, he was doing it for me. I don't care. He did it the wrong way, blah, blah, blah. You're messing me up. Well, nobody could have really told the difference. Tell me how to play. If he ever does that again, and he's like, you need to I don't need to fucking apologize to him. It's just great. And the end part of it is probably the best.
And you'll have to listen to that yourself.
Correct.
I'm not going to snip that in there. But they did make a video of it, right? Yeah. And they're incorporating all the Egyptian stuff in there. Like there's still this secret society of men going all the way back to wherever, secret phone calls and handshakes and drop-offs that make all the real decisions in the world. Meanwhile, they juxtapose that with like IRA type guys in a shitty apartment, thinking they're tough, thinking they're soldiers for hire, happy to go get blood on their hands, when really they don't benefit from it. It's these guys in the secret meetings that get all the benefit out of it.
How did the place look to you that the mercenaries were hanging around in?
Yeah, it looked like a shithole.
Right. Real dump. Yeah. Apparently they were saying that whoever directed this was like, oh, yeah, we got the place. It's a real dump. It's this tenement house on the island of dogs. And things is like, Rafi House? Yeah. You know the place? Yeah, I used to live there. Thanks. Nobody would live here. It's so disgusting. He's like, yeah, I used to live there. I appreciate you.
Who was that?
That was Bruce.
Oh, it was Bruce?
Yeah. That's Raffi House. I know that place. So and it's cool because it's I like the part where the guy's typing on the computer, and that's like, oh yes, the computer. That's where all the nefarious things happened back then.
And it's got all the
Egyptian characters on it.
The characters on there, yeah,
correct.
Exactly. Like the hieroglyphs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the secret society that will control us all.
But no, I mean, it refers to the doomsday clock and the symbolic clock used by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, which, it represents the potential of a global meltdown or whatever. And when the Soviets and the United States tested H-bombs within a couple months of each other, they set it to 2 minutes to midnight. And, because it regressed down, it happened again in 72 or whatever. And it talks about the kind of romance of war and how politicians, they make these decisions. They get all fat off of these things, but then it's over, the war. Society's not better off. And they're taking money that could be taken to help rebuild homes or educate kids or clothe or feed them to make an even better kind of gun that will make, winning the next war even more easy, so, and then the other country, whoever it is, has to starve their people because they have to keep up because that's the way it works.
Most people, the common people, end up getting screwed on this. There's only a very small fraction that make money, but they make a lot of money off of this. Yeah. And this was an interesting idea too, because going through these albums of 1984, this was kind of a common theme. You know, we talked about the Scorpions doing Crossfire, and then David Gilmour had Cruise on his.
That's right, about cruise missiles and the.
Yeah, it's just this. Everybody like the 80s were a good time, but there's that thing in the background of there's this threat that at any second this could come off the rails and go down the drain. I mean, even though it's a nuclear song about, you're talking about the doomsday clock, it's still just regular war too. That just seems like it's always going on somewhere.
Well, that's right. Yeah, and the doomsday clock reached 2 minutes a couple times. It reached 3 minutes in 1984 because U.S. Soviet tensions were high and the Soviets boycotted the Olympics, and so when this was released, it was at 3 minutes. And it just so happens that August 6th was 1945 that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. It was August 6th, 1984 that they released 2 minutes to midnight.
That's crazy. And I don't know if they did that on purpose, but that's still a crazy thing that the two things have in common.
I know. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
But it did well for them. It went to number 11 in the UK, number 10 in Ireland, even got on the German singles charts. So Iron Maiden is on their way. They've got these two big singles from this album with this great artwork. So they're rolling at this point. Now, the third, which usually needs to be a game changer, and I guess it is, Lost for Words, Big Hurrah, it's an instrumental. Written by Harris. Now, this is weird to have an instrumental this early in an 8-song album. It's very strange. And I keep expecting to hear the vocals at some point because it is a fully mapped out song with like a beginning, a middle, and an end and places for solos. Is it that they just needed to get it done and they couldn't come up with words for it? So they said, just put it out where it is. And obviously that's the name of the song, right?
Right. And that's kind of the beauty part about an instrumental is you can call whatever you want. You don't have to have anything go with anything. But you're right. It is a full song just without lyrics to it. But I kind of think, and this is the beauty of Iron Maiden, is that they don't care. Like you had your two singles, you've already put those in the order. We've already heard those. There's not going to be any more singles here. You're kind of getting into the deeper part of the record now. And so, yeah, it's definitely unorthodox, but it works for them.
Well, it is Iron Maiden. There's no doubt about it, the whole song. But they should have come up with something. They should have, with all these songwriters, they should have come up with something for it. And I don't know if they're just tapped out after a grueling tour and then having to fly around and get ready for another one. Yeah. From England to Bahamas to New York to Florida. Maybe they just said, okay, we don't need any words on this. I don't know. It's a little bit of a disappointment because it is a good song, good solos, good transitions. It just needs some lyrics. That's all. And it's like, well, it'll be hard to put the lyrics in. They figure out how to put all the lyrics in all the other songs, right? So yeah. I don't get that bit of it. It's not bad. It's just I feel like we're cheated out of a little something.
Yeah. Yeah. Had there been maybe one more song on here, you'd be like, oh yeah. Or maybe if this was down farther in the track listing, it would be a different deal. But yeah, to be the third track, a little strange.
It's a little strange. But then we move on to Flash of the Blade, which is a Dickinson song. It's talking about growing up quickly. And it may be about swords, but it could also be about knives in the streets, My big note was, is that Bruce doing backup vocals? It sounds like he is. It sounds like he's backing himself up, which is hard to do live.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a double track. And Dickinson is I don't know if he's world renowned, but he's been doing fencing for a long time.
Yeah.
You were talking about Martin Birch. Apparently Martin Birch is a maniac also. Like he likes to mix it up with everybody else. And he was studying karate. And apparently one night in the Bahamas, he had got this idea of, we're going to do karate versus fencing when everybody was drunk. Just probably not the best idea ever.
Sounds bad.
Yeah, just okay, stop it. But I like this one. The intro is cool. It's simple but it's cool. The one thing I noticed too is that Nico is really just kind of in the pocket on this one. He's not all over the place like he usually is. And it's kind of a nice change of pace. I like the fact that you've got different people writing these songs so that you've got a couple of different styles here. Even though it all fits together, they don't all sound the same.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. And when Bruce belts out, "One man and his arm," I mean, he's doing the operatic thing that he's kind of become known for in a big way.
You had to grow up early. Out to smoking ruins and the bodies at your feet. You die as you lived in a flash of the blade. And a corner of gun fade away. You live for the touch, for the feel of the steel. One man and his own.
And, he's talking about as a young boy chasing dragons with your wooden sword so mighty. You were St. George or David, and you always killed the beast. But times changed very quickly. You had to grow up early, a house in smoking ruins, and the bodies at your feet. Ooh, okay. But you could tell this is one of his rights because smell of resin leather, steely iron mask, as you cut and thrust and parried at the fencing master's call. That's only he could really write that, I feel.
Yeah. And I like that concept of you die as you live in the flash of a blade. I mean, is that a metaphor for your entire life? You think you've got all this time and really you don't. You go through quickly.
Well, and also, what you think? Do you live to get high? Because if you live to get high, you're also going to die by getting high. You live this rock and roll life. The rock and roll life can kill you too. So just be careful out there. You think you're tough carrying that gun, but someone's going to shoot you because you're carrying that gun, right? So just be prepared for that. Good Iron Maiden song fits well on the album. Mm-hmm. By the way, you know how this shows like your full legal name as far as like a lot of times like based on who writes it, it'll give like, okay, Steve Harris is Stephen Percy Harris.
Well, of course he is.
If you call him Percy, I would love to watch what happened next.
You get a fistful of...
That would be hilarious to me.
Yeah, because like Stevie, he seems like the kind of person that like he's very soft spoken, but he kind of sounds like it. Like you get him the wrong way, and all of a sudden the hooligan would come out.
Mm-hmm. It's like you look at him the wrong way, you piss him off.
Correct.
It's not going to go down well for you. Look at his hands,
Right.
He's going to hit you with those things. No, but his next right is the last song on the first side of the album, even though we only had it on CD. The Duelists. And that's got the chug and the gallop of a Harris Wright.
Right.
A runner with the guitarist running along with him, basically.
Yeah, you can tell right off the bat this is a Harris tune. And so, it's nice that they put the flash of the blade and then into this, so it's not the same, even though it does rock and chug along pretty well.
Fight for splendor, fight for your life. Ready to start the job against the best that wins in the end. I'm launching a fight to burn too late to come to the twist in the day.
No, yeah, and it's kind of about a classic duel. Like he threw down a glove, you made the mistake of picking it up, now you're gone, right? Choosing of guns or fighting with swords, the choice of weapons is done. He'll tear you apart as soon as you start. Fight for the honor, fight for the splendor, fight for the pleasure. Yeah. This is the way people used to settle their differences back in the day.
You couldn't really say no, I don't think. I think if somebody challenged you and you didn't accept the challenge, like that was just it. You were just...
That was worse.
Yes, correct. But when you say yes, you got a 50-50 shot, or maybe, depending on your skill level, less.
Exactly, yeah.
Making it out of there.
Yeah. A cut and a thrust, a parry, a blow, a stab to your heart, and you're done. The angel of death, here's your last breath. Meanwhile, the Reaper looks on. Yeah, I mean, that's just like, you have insulted me, sir. We will go out at 20 paces. And if you say no, then you're ostracized from that society. And if you say yes, it's a pretty good chance you're going to die.
And you could pick, what was it, pistols or sword? I don't think they ever fought with knives.
Pistols, swords, or something else.
Yeah,
I think.
Oof.
But you can hear Murray go first, and then Adrian. So they're like dueling guitar players, dueling in this song called The Duelist. That makes it kind of fun. And yeah, it's a great way to wrap up the side of the album there before you get into, well, some epicness on the second side, because there's 5 songs and they're not all real short. I mean, this is a 51-minute album, which for 1984 is a little long. Kind of like before CDs were the rage. It was easy to put 51 on there. That's starting to stretch the limits of an LP. But that's the first side, those 5 songs, about 25 or so minutes. You flip it over and you've got Back in the Village, which is a Bruce song. Mm-hmm. With Adrian Frederick Smith. Frederick. I can't believe we were in the bar and had drinks right next to Bruce and Frederick, man. That's amazing. If I had known that, I would have had enough in me to call him Frederick that night in Antwerp.
That may have gone differently had you said that.
Yeah, I know. It would have been a great story.
Hey, this is Tom and Zeus from Shout It Out Loudcast.
And you are listening to the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast.
Anyway, no, Back in the Village, I mean, it's got some sweet guitar in here to rival the shredders of the day from the U.S., or, from the Dio, it was Vivian. And Metallica's just getting started at this point, but these guys, it's a lot more melodic.
Shot to ribbons, the truth is black and burned. Shell shock in the kitchen, tables overturned. Back in the village again, in the village, I'm back in the village again.
Okay, so I've got notes on this that this is actually based on the same show as, well, it's The Prisoner from the Number of the Beast album. I've got to watch this show now because this sounds crazy. Like it was a show about how they took these people and put them in this. It's almost like the Truman Show. They put them in this village that you think is a real thing, but it's really not, and they're performing psychological experiments on you. It's very strange, but it was a British show from the 70s, I think, 60s or 70s.
Yeah, Patrick McGowan was the kind of main guy.
It.
I'm not a prisoner. I'm a free man.
Yeah, so just very bizarre. My only complaint about this one is this one drags a little bit.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
And well, okay, so all right, 2 problems. It drags a little bit and you know what's coming next. So it's like, I kind of just want to get past this one.
And not knowing that story of, there's this actual village that they kind of put them in there. But you look at that, questions are a burden and answers are a prison for oneself. Shell shock in the kitchen. Tables start to burn. That just seems like a soldier coming back from war, and you're sitting there and like, I don't want to answer this stuff because it makes me think about what I did, and I'm trying to compartmentalize that. I'm trying to get away from that. But there's shell shock in the kitchen, so you're having your coffee, and all of a sudden you're right back there,
I can't imagine that. That's just the absolute worst. Like you think you're past it, and then, like you said, in a second you're right back to the horrors.
Yeah. Back in the village, I'm back in the village again. Again, hearing your story about that, it's from the show. Okay, that changes it completely. But I still feel like it could still be my interpretation of it.
Absolutely. And that's the great thing about these songs is that, you may have written it for a certain point of view or a certain idea, but if somebody else hears it, they can take it and make it whatever they want to.
Yeah,
and I think it does. I mean, when you say it like that, there are themes in here that you can pick up on. And I mean, let's put it this way, folks: nobody makes out in war.
Yeah, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
In a black hole, and I'm spitting as my wings get shot away. It's like, I have all the power, the guns, the weaponry, the armory, whatever it is, and then you're back. It's like, okay, you're just back to life now. Not supposed to think about those things anymore. What was the one? The guy defuse the bombs.
Oh, Hurt Locker.
Hurt Locker, yes.
Yeah.
It was really directed really well in that when you're in like Afghanistan or the Middle East, wherever they are, it's really bright and very like yellow sepia in places. But then when he gets back to the world, it's got that kind of like blue sepia tint to it. And like you can see him juxtaposed. He's walking down the street, total gear on, about to go pull apart a bomb that would kill a bunch of his people. And then he's at home in the grocery store trying to decide which cereal to buy. Or he's up on a roof, like cleaning the gutters, like just getting all the leaves out of here. It's like, this is what I am here, just somebody who cleans gutters. So it's kind of got that, whether you're in the village or you're at war, you still have to be in some ways the same person. It's just too hard to turn that off.
Yeah. And do you ever really turn it off? Is it always just running in the background? I mean, could you imagine that? Like, you're talking about he's in his gear walking down the street. Like, there's a better than average. I know what I'm doing is helping people, but if I make a mistake, I'm dead.
Well, that's right. So I don't know. It's just like people from like our grandfather's generation, they just didn't say anything. It sat there and drank through it.
Correct.
But then in Vietnam, it was like people are starting to really talk about there's some horrible stuff over there. Nobody wanted to hear it. So they just kind of got shoved away in a lot of ways. And then I think in the 80s, finally, people started to realize, hey, we should take care of our Vietnam veterans. We should do more for them. Because I just saw a kind of behind the scenes on Platoon and how they all, Oliver Stone was kind of an evil person, but then the gunny who was in the movie, he's done a lot of movies since as far as like being the technical producer, and he actually put them through boot camp, in Southeast Asia. So they are always sweating their sacks off and they are always starved and thirsty, but it really kind of created a bond with them. And what it did was Vietnam vets who always thought that the war was depicted, Hollywood never got it. This was realistic. And it got people talking about their experience again instead of burying them deep with drugs or alcohol or, staring off into the wall, getting that 1,000-mile stare at them. It's like, what's wrong with daddy? Leave him alone. But let's move on to something like Slavery, which will lighten the mood a little bit. It won't. But Powerslave, title track, 7th on the album, 2nd on the second side. It starts with a big laugh from somebody large and evil, like the devil or a pharaoh. And it's the story of the pharaoh, kind of, about how you're trying to get that power. You live through that power, but then when it's time to die, there's someone else to just kind of walk right into your shoes.
Right. And about how, like, you don't think, can you beat death? Why am I tied to this? I've been held up my entire life, but now you're getting ready to pass this on, and that's not something that you want to do. You're trapped in this deal.
I know. I thought I was a living God. Don't I get to live forever? Right? Is that who I am? But there's a big slowdown in the middle, and I love what Steve Harris does in there, man. His bass in there is so good and so rich, and the guitar work as they build back up just has a great groove to it. It's not just heavy metal. Like, they got a good groove in there for him. And then there's the big solos and lots of drums, and then they go back to the regular chug of Powerslave. It's an epic. It's one that I know was big on this tour, but at over 7 minutes long, there's a couple of amazing pieces in here that you have to be like, hats off, boys. You are not just great players. You're talented songwriters and arrangers to kind of be able to put all this together.
Yeah. And even though the last song was only 5:02, and this one is a full 2 minutes longer, it doesn't seem that way, because you've got, like you said, you've got the transition, you've got the speed up part with the solos, then it comes back to the original. This song is fantastic, and I love the story about how he's got that mask that he wears with the feathers on it, that I guess he was bebopping down the streets of LA, and it was in a sex shop, like a hardcore sex shop. So you kind of go in there, oh, can I help you? Yeah, I'll have that. No, not that one. Not the pointy one. I want this one. What are you going to use if I don't worry about it? Like, I just want to get this transaction over with and the hell out of this place.
Because it is a funny looking mask, but one that could strike fear into you while he's on stage, I suppose. Right. And it's on Live After Death, right?
Yeah. And you know what's coming too. When he has that on, it's time for the song. And they do an awesome job about that. Even when we saw them live, every song is a different tapestry.
Right.
And they really go out of their way to make each one a different deal. And, they were talking about the Eddie from this tour, from the Slavery tour, that had the big, arms on the sides of it, yeah, that were like motorcycle springs or something, so they would move up and down. But I guess in one of the shows, the place was too small
to get it all in.
Well, yeah, so like it's hanging over Nico, like it's hitting him in the, I'm trying to play the damn drums. Move it up. We can't move it up. This is it. We're hitting the ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some Spinal Tap moments across the 28 countries and 200 shows or whatever it was they did in 11 months. Probably more than 200 shows. But it's also amazing that Bruce could write this. He doesn't have a co-write on the music. Like, it makes sense when he writes the lyrics and Adrian writes the music because Adrian's a guitar player. How can you write the 7-minute epic, which goes up and has the break and then builds back up and goes without being an instrumentalist?
Yeah, I wondered the same thing too, because usually, yeah, there's person A writes the lyrics, person B does the instrumental, or you've got a couple of guys in the band. I don't know. I think this had to be some kind of collaboration.
But Bruce gets sole writing credit for it,
right? Just
like Harry gets sole writing credit for the last Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which at more than 13 minutes is basically like 3 songs.
Correct. And I understand that he is the creative director of the band, but still, I've got an idea for a song, boys. All right, lay it on me. What is it? Well, it's about a poem from the 1700s. What? And it's going to be 13 minutes long. Actually, almost 14 minutes long. And there's no chorus in it. Radio. Okay.
Radio.
Here we go.
I'm sure they all said radio.
They said pip pip. That's a what do they call them? That's top lad.
Top band there. Yeah.
But yeah, on paper it doesn't sound like it would make sense because it's all over the map. But it basically he wrote a poem and set it to music.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. It was Samuel Taylor Coleridge's poem, and they borrowed a lot of it. And he was under pressure, like, we need another song. And obviously, they don't have lyrics for Lost for Words, right? So they kind of have 6.5 songs, and they need 8. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do here? But he put it together pretty quickly, from what I understand. And there's 2 direct passages from the poem that includes the famous lines, water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink, because that's what happens when you're stuck out there. Basically, it's a story about a captain who kills the albatross. They wade into a place with no wind and no tide, and they just sit there like cooking for the longest time. But, and they did, they brought it back on the Somewhere Back in Time tour, which was awesome, by the way. And Murray, Dickinson, and Harris all cited it was their favorite song to play live, which is a big deal considering they have all these amazing and fun songs to play. But it kind of goes through different stages of this song. I mean, as it would have to at 13 minutes, 14 minutes almost. So what's your favorite part of it?
I like the part where it kind of breaks down at like the 5:03 mark. Like the beginning part's cool and it's telling the story, but then it breaks down to just the plucking part, and it's got the creaking sounds, and it's like once you understand what the song is about, it's like you're trapped on this ship. Like that's what it seems like. You're in the middle of the ocean, everybody's dead, you're never getting off this ship again. This is the worst.
All with Steve's bass holding down the whole time. You can hear the ship creaking. You can hear someone whispering about your fate. And the bass is just kind of going there. And then it picks up speed a little bit. And again, the bass is leading the way. And then it's rain. Boom. Bam.
Trust falls from his neck, sinks down like lead into the sea. Then down it falls, comes the
And then we get into the guitar magic, and they even double each other in there. Yeah. It's so epic, and they pull it off live. They put it on Live After Death. It is so epic on there that you figure, oh, it's a 14-minute song. They're not going to play that live. They'll play all the rest.
Right.
that's just something they wanted to create and put on the album. But no, they come out and play the whole thing with all the breaks, with all the stops and the coming back up again. And it's as classic Maiden to me as it gets. This is easily one of the greatest accomplishments sonically as a band. And yeah, they're not going to play this every night because it's too long. And eventually all their songs are pretty long latter day, right? There's not too many 4-minute Iron Maiden songs, really, so they don't play this that much, but when they do, the crowd goes nuts. And to me, it's such an amazing way to wrap up an album. Like, you're exhausted after that. Like, you're like, oh my God, I just got through Rime of the Ancient Mariner. It does kind of end a little bit. It doesn't really fade off like you would think something that long would. But I got no complaints about it.
I don't either. And the story itself is cool too, because it's a guy going to a wedding, I think, and this dude like kind of catches him, this crazy homeless hermit person, and he starts to tell him the story because that's what he has to do now. He has to spend the rest of eternity passing on this wisdom of what not to do. So it's really the whole thing is cool, and the fact that it caught Harris enough to make a song out of this is pretty cool also. And it's a testament to the band of, what are you most excited about for on the show? Oh, I want to hear the 14-minute one.
Yeah, it's also a testament to the English education system, because Harry didn't grow up rich, yet he was exposed to this kind of poetry and these kind of stories. What were we reading as kids? You know, like I remember having an O.J. Simpson bio book that I liked a lot, and maybe some Hardy Boys, and that's about it, right? You know, I'm not reading stuff like this, but they have these things to draw upon. And I mean, just reading the lyrics takes you a few minutes. It's not, it's not like a Motley Crue song where it's like, okay, there's 10 different words in it and they're arranged in a certain order. No,
right.
This is, this kind of goes on and tells the beginning of the story, the middle, and then the end of kind of what his fate is. It's epic.
There's nothing to come back to. There is no chorus to come back to. So once you're into this, like you're riding it till the end. And I think that's what kind of makes it awesome too, because it's broken off into little parts inside the song. And I would love to see them play it live. I mean, I don't know if they'll ever bring this one back, but if they do, it would be awesome.
I have seen it, and it was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you're just exhausted after this, even just watching it, I'm sure.
So good. And but they also knew that doing the Egyptian motif and putting all that stuff back out there and together was something people were dying to see. Because, you and I, although they did 1 million dates in 11 months, we were still too young to go, and we didn't have any knowledge of who they really were. We just saw some trashy kids with some of their T-shirts on, or maybe an album cover in a record store, and we're like, I don't know, it's a neat artwork, but I don't know anything about them. And then by the time we figured out, and that happens with a lot of bands, a new generation finds them. And then while you need to do your new stuff, you got to educate them on the old stuff too, so Maiden did this thing throughout the last, 15 or so years, maybe longer, where they'll do a tour of a new album and it'll be mostly newer stuff with a couple of classics thrown in. And then the next tour will be a classics tour with, nothing or not much from after 1990, in there. And they kind of do that. And the next one, new album, newer stuff. And the Somewhere Back in Time tour, obviously, had the old stuff in it and revisited some of this classic stuff. They did a revisit of Seventh Son that I saw that was awesome with all the ice stage. And Alice Cooper opened for them. Orianthe was with Alice at that point. That was really a fun show to go to. And obviously the ones that we saw in Europe last year, which they're still on, right? I mean, this tour in the United States this fall is kind of just a continuation of that. And while it's not coming anywhere near us, if we score first to the barrier tickets, we'll get there somehow.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a sign. And so I'm excited that going by that algorithm, then the next tour would be a hits tour.
Well, yeah, I guess, although, yes, it's Senjutsu for sure, but they're also incorporating Somewhere Back in Time, the album. So they're basically concentrating on 2 albums, the new one and that one from 1986, which we love, which I knew it was important to get you to.
Yes.
Because you'd never seen him. Like, well, if he's going to see him, he's got to see him on this tour because they're going to do our favorite album. And then it just so happens that their new album totally kicked ass.
Right. Yeah. But I would love to see him play Aces High. I would love to see him play 2 Minutes to Midnight. So yeah, if they want to do a greatest hits tour next, it would not hurt my feelings.
But the fact of the matter is, it was this album. Like they were just a metal band out slogging it, trying to make it work. Yes, working hard, playing a lot of shows, recording a lot as they can. But it was on this one it said, like, according to Nico and Adrian, Powerslave began making Iron Maiden very famous, very fast, very quickly, especially in Brazil, where they were special guests of Queen at the first Rock in Rio. And they played to over 300,000 people. And it went down so well that they were out in Rio and people would wait outside of hotels and restaurants for the band and like scream at them like they were the Beatles or something like that. So this was really the point where they start to get into the stratosphere of like becoming a huge band. And I know there was a time in the 90s when Bruce and Adrian were out of the band and I saw them at a club with Blaze and Yannick. And that was probably a low point, certainly in America. But they have built themselves back up and now they're playing only arenas and stadiums and amphitheaters around the world. And of course, some of it is built on the strength of this album.
Yeah, I think this one has definitely put them on the map in the United States, or allowed them to keep going after this. And even though they're really not like anybody else, that's kind of the cool part. Yes, they have singles, but when you listen to this record, this wasn't like anything else out at the time.
Well, thanks to listen to our take on Powerslave by Iron Maiden as it turns 40 here. The one that spawned the Live After Death live CD, the epic tour that was, fact-checking guys, 189 dates that almost drove all of them mad, but helped build their name as a great live band, as people who come out and deliver every night. And now had the goods on wax, on LP, on the album to back up that energy and talent that you saw on stage. And of course, that video really helped them take off in the United States of America. So it was this album, Powerslave, that enabled all that to happen, with the Egyptian imagery and the Big Eddie popping out as a mummy with fireworks popping out of his eyes. Great heavy metal visuals. Now we see them as all-time classics, but they were really kind of pushing the boundary there and leading the way with a bombastic live show with all that kind of extra fun stuff. And Powerslave may not be my favorite album, but it's got some great songs on it. Classic 2 Minutes to Midnight, classic Aces High. What can you say about the title track in Rime of the Ancient Mariner? These are great Iron Maiden songs, and they're worth celebrating as they turn 40. And hopefully Jackson and I will get to give you one more live Iron Maiden review. I don't know if it's going to happen this fall or not, but there's always hope. And with that, folks, we want to know, do we get something right? Do we get something wrong? Do we miss the point? Do we leave out your favorite part? Email us and let us know. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. Let us know the bands, the albums, the live concerts, the books, the DVDs, the rock properties you want to hear us talk about here on the show. You got to be sure that you download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're thinking about it, guys, hey, please give us a 5-star review. It's just very helpful to the show. It helps us find more rock and rollers like you. And if we get wind of it, we might just read it on an episode. Thanks, as always, to Pantheon Podcast for making us part of the family. And thanks to our incredible sponsor, RareVinyl.com, who has mountains of Iron Maiden cool, really neat collectibles in their cache. Go to RareVinyl.com, use the code UGLY, and save 10% off one entire order. And that's it for this week, folks. Lots of cool things on the horizon. Interviews with maybe a legend, interviews with maybe someone you don't know but should. So stay tuned. And to all you rock and rollers all around the world, be cool and keep doing what you do to keep rock alive.